Everyone, and welcome to our Microsoft Teams for Education webinar, coming here from London at our Microsoft office here in London. I see we have attendees from all around the world, from the UK, from the US. I think we even have a few people from Australia. I think it's the middle of the night there. But thank you everyone for joining. Just before we get started, I wanted to introduce myself. So my name is Sarah Joshi. I'm a senior product manager on Microsoft Teams. So I'm part of the engineering team, and I work with customers from around the world in the education space to help them get started with Teams, whether it's talking through technical deployment questions all the way through adoption strategy and planning and end user training and change management. I focus on helping customers like you get started with Teams and to really harness the best of the platform for collaboration. So in today's training, we'll have a few different sections of the content. The first will be an overview of Teams and an overview of Teams for Education. And then we'll go into a interactive demo session. So feel free to follow along, open up teams.microsoft.com, or if you already have it installed on your desktop, you can do that there. But I find that it always works well if you're following along to figure out how to get started with the product. So with that, we'll dive in. So I wanted to give some background before we dive into the product overview around some context of why we're here and why we, Microsoft, felt it was important to really evolve the way that we think about productivity and collaboration as a company. So many of these trends that I'll talk about are relevant not only in probably your day-to-day work at your universities or schools, but also in the way that we think about educating this next generation of students that are going to enter the workforce. So there were a few trends that we saw when we were working on the early days of Teams. So the first is 45% of people use social tools at work. So whether it's WhatsApp or Facebook, we see many people, a very large majority, and this varies market to market, using social tools at work to do work. And our users have about 4 devices each. And so there's that expectation that any product will work across all of your devices. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the different generational theory around what's happening in the workforce today. We've got millennials and Gen Z who will soon be the majority of the workforce. And we think about from an education perspective, these are the main generations that are being educated today. And the expectations, especially for Gen Z who are digital natives, expectations around collaboration and communication are really different, where it's rare to pick up the phone and have a conversation or walk by to someone's desk and have a conversation. This generation's a lot more comfortable with chat and rapid collaboration on any device. So that was a trend that we recognized that we really wanted to focus on. And the other trend is that 72% of workers will be working remotely by 2020. Many of you may be spread out across different schools or campuses, or maybe you're traveling and you do have the need to be constantly connected, and there's that expectation that you can be productive if you're not physically in the office. And then finally, the way that teams are formed and operate is changing. We see 2 times as many teams that are present, and 80% of employee time is spent collaborating. And just think about a time that your team either had someone leave or maybe join, or maybe you had an organization change where you now had a new team or a larger team. Teams are not static. And so we wanted to design for the fact that teams grow and change on a regular basis. So with that, we started thinking about how do we change the way that people collaborate within our own Microsoft ecosystem. So that's where Microsoft Teams comes in. And just a little note about our momentum. So we launched to the public a little over a year ago. And so since then, we now have 200,000 organizations around the world using Teams. That's a really big number. Teams is now the fastest growing enterprise collaboration application of all time, which is really exciting. And 200,000 organizations around the world, including educational institutions like yourselves, have started using Teams to really change the way they collaborate and help bring transparency and rapid collaboration into the workplace. So just to give a high-level overview of Teams, there's 4 key parts of Teams that I'll cover today in addition to the core education features. And so if there's one thing I have you walk away from this today, our webinar today, is to think about Teams as your hub for productivity, collaboration, and teamwork within Office 365. So our goal with Teams was to really bring all of Office 365 together into a single place where you can have the people that you want to collaborate with, your files, and have conversations all in a single place. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Office 365 or have been using it for a while, you probably are familiar with the waffle. And so on the waffle, you've got all of your applications. I think there's about 26 of them. You've got Outlook, you've got PowerPoint, you've got OneNote, you've got Power BI, you've got Planner. And all of those applications are so powerful and help you be productive in their own right. But Teams is the first time we really made an effort to aggregate all of those applications and bring it into a single experience. And so the idea with Teams is to have a single place to be able to collaborate and use all of your Office 365 applications in a single place. So the first part of Teams that I'll cover today is our communication features. So within communication, you can communicate through chat, meetings, and calls. Now, this may seem familiar for those of you who've been using Teams for a while, and that's on purpose if you've been using Skype for Business. So we've publicly announced by the end of this calendar year, all of the Skype for Business functionality will be present in Teams, all built on our next generation calling platform. So what that means is you can have one-on-one chats, you can have group chats, you can do video calling and audio calling in meetings, just like you could on Skype for Business, except it's now all within Teams and you get the next layer of collaboration features on top of that. One key distinction between Skype for Business and Teams is the fact that with Teams, it's persistent chat. So with Skype for Business, for those who are familiar, you would have a conversation with someone and then you'd X out of that window and that conversation is gone, unless you're going to dig through the audit logs if you're an IT admin. With Teams, our goal is to have persistent chat. And so what that means is you have the full chat history, whether it's a group chat or a one-on-one chat, always at your fingertips. You can search against it, you can share files. It's a persistent experience versus one that goes away after that conversation is over. Now, the second part of Teams that's really critical are collaboration features. So communication is one thing, but collaboration is the next level of, it's great to be able to have a conversation, but how do you collaborate on files and documents and make decisions rapidly as a team together? And so within Teams, we have a deep integration with Office 365. So Teams is actually built on top of Office 365. And what that means is you have a rich co-editing experience for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. We're deeply integrated with OneNote. We're actually built on top of SharePoint, so you can share files securely with your team. We're also integrated with other Office 365 applications like Planner and Power BI. So if you're already using those, we've brought them into a single experience within Teams. It wasn't enough, though, for us to just integrate with Microsoft products. We're definitely, we've changed our strategy when we think about the old days of Microsoft requiring you to use the full Microsoft stack. Now, today, we obviously want to be realistic and we want to be where you are in terms of what applications you use and your team use on a regular basis to collaborate. And so because of that, we've actually built a really robust developer platform for any developer to build on top of Teams. So whether it's Adobe or Trello or SurveyMonkey, we have over 200, and that list is ever growing, 200 integrations directly within Teams. It wasn't enough, though, to let third-party developers build on top of Teams. We wanted to open up those services to anyone. So what that means is your own universities or schools, your own institutions can build custom apps for Teams. We call these line of business applications. So if you're already building a chat bot, for instance, you can build that on top of Teams. If you have any other line of business applications that you've built, you can integrate those directly within Teams. And finally, for my IT pros on the webinar, you can work with confidence knowing that Teams comes with enterprise level security, compliance, and manageability. because it's built on top of Office 365, it comes with all of those features like audit logging and e-discovery and legal hold that you would expect from any Office 365 product. One really awesome feature I would put under this category is what we call secure guest access. So this in particular is very popular for universities when we think about research collaboration. So guest access allows you to invite guests securely from outside of your tenant. So when you think about research collaboration, for any of you at research universities, much of the time you're either collaborating with industry partners or other universities. Maybe you're part of a consortium with 6 other universities on a research project. Teams is a great platform to be able to bring everyone together securely, to have meetings, to share files, to collaborate on that without worrying about data security, because with secure guest access, Teams takes care of all of that. Another key part of Teams, going back to the trends we saw with the average user has 4 devices, and there's the expectation that everything just works across all of your devices. So Teams is cross-platform. So whether you're on the desktop, Mac, mobile, or on a browser, you have a full Teams experience. So I'll actually demo from Edge browser, and you'll be able to see that it's a fully featured client, very similar to what you would see on PC desktop or Mac desktop. Call out on the mobile client. If you're using iOS or Android, definitely recommend you download Microsoft Teams to your phone. I know for me, it's really evolved the way I work. I can be sitting in traffic, in an Uber. I obviously wouldn't Teams while driving, but I can at least be triaging messages and liking posts and replying to posts without actually needing to be on my laptop. So that's really changed the way that I work, and I'm a lot more productive now that I can quickly triage using the mobile client. Now onto the good stuff, why you're all here, which is our education features. So we really wanted to do something different with Teams from the beginning, and we wanted to develop for education. And so this is definitely different from traditional Microsoft products where we design them for enterprise, and then some of our education customers would naturally adopt them. With Teams from the beginning, we wanted to start with education-focused features. We actually have 2 entire engineering teams. They're quite large, and people like me included that are dedicated to engineering for education. So whether it's someone like me who works with customers to help them get started with Teams, or our engineering team that's building these education-focused features, we as a product group are very, very focused on education and really believe in the potential applications of Teams in the education space. So as Office 365 education customers, you actually get additional features that are education specific above and beyond the enterprise version of Teams. And so I'll talk a little bit about it here, and then for the demo portion, you'll really see that come to life. But there's 4 ways that you will see these education-specific features, and these all show up in these different team types. So when you go to create a team, you'll get 4 options. Now, if you're an enterprise customer, you only get 1 option, which is what we call our anyone team type. But if you're an education customer, you have 3 additional team types, and that then provisions special education features as a result of the team type that you choose. So the first team type is a class team type. So with the name, it's probably obvious. This is designed for classroom scenarios, whether it's a physical classroom, a mixed delivery classroom, or an online or remote classroom. The idea here is to bring professor and teacher and students together into a learning and collaboration space. The second type is what we call a PLC, or professional learning community. We've seen these take off, especially in K through 12, when it comes to professional development for teachers, being able to have all history teachers collaborate together on best practices and curriculum. And it's not just history teachers at your school. It could be history teachers in your district or history teachers in your country. Especially with guest access, these PLCs start to get really exciting when you think about disciplines collaborating together outside of your school or maybe internationally. The third type is what we call a staff team. And so the staff team comes with a special staff notebook, which allows you to collaborate with your staff members, whether it's your faculty or maybe it's a principal and all of the different teachers in a school. come together and collaborate securely using a special staff notebook. And as I mentioned before, the fourth type is what we call an anyone team type. And so we see this being used heavily for research collaboration, student groups, event planning. It's a blank template that doesn't come with any education-specific features, but it allows anyone to come together to collaborate. So I wanted to share some sound bites from real professors and teachers and educators from around the world of how they've seen teams transform their classrooms. So the first, we have a social studies teacher in New Jersey, and he is really passionate about the transformation that Teams has brought to his classroom. He says he's been teaching for almost 15 years now, and this is the greatest product that we started integrating into our classrooms, and it's led to the biggest transformation that he's seen. On the other side, we have a lecturer from UTS in Australia, and he started using Teams as really a fun way to engage his students. But what ended up happening, he saw that students became more active in the learning process. And what's interesting, they continued to engage on the team long after exams were graded and the class was over. The students kept engaging and kept talking about the topics related to the course. So that's really exciting to see. So with that, I'm actually going to switch my screen and move on to the demo portion of our session. So give me one moment. I'm just going to switch my screen, and then you'll start to see Teams in one moment. Okay, so this is Microsoft Teams. Feel free to follow along as I'm going through these different features of the product. So just to give a quick overview of Teams itself, you can see here that I'm actually demoing an Edge, and that's on purpose. I wanted to show you that you can have a fully featured Teams experience in a browser. And again, our goal is for you to be able to be productive anywhere you are on any device that you're on. And so here I'm using Edge. You'll see that I can do everything in the browser, and that in itself is really exciting. So here on the left side, I've got all of my apps. I've got activity, I've got chat, I've got Teams, I've got meetings. I'm going to focus on Teams to start, and then we'll go through the rest. In this left rail here, you can see my list of teams. So I'm a member of a bunch of different teams here. I have 3 favorites that I've selected at the top. To be able to select a favorite, if you click on the 3 dots next to a name, you have the option to either remove a favorite or add a favorite. And so here for the webinar today, I'm going to focus on these 3 teams, but I'm a part of many, many teams. And then in this main section, this is the main Teams area where I can see my conversations, my files, the content related to my team. So to get started, if you click at the bottom, join or create a team. Here I click create team. And you can see, as I mentioned before, those 4 different team types pop up. And so this is your first chance to really take a step back and think about what kind of team do I want to create, and what is the mode of collaboration that I'm expecting. So in this case, I'm going to create a class team because I'm a professor and I'm teaching a class. So I'm going to call this Economics 101. I can add a description if I want. And here's an interesting feature. This is actually brand new. We just launched this a few weeks ago. It's the option to create a team using an existing team as a template. So I'm going to click on that. And so here I actually get the option to select an existing team to basically copy and paste. And so this is a really cool feature if I think about as an educator. I'm going to teach Economics 101 this term. I'm going to teach Economics 101 the next term. And the ability to just copy and paste it over and over again is really exciting. And so here I'm actually going to start fresh so you can see all the different steps. But if I wanted to, I could create copy an existing team, keep all the channels, keep all of the structure, and obviously take out the roster. So all of my students would be removed, conversations would be removed, but I don't have to start from scratch at the beginning of each term. So I'm going to click next. I've got Economics 101. I'm going to create the team. And now I have to add people. So when you think about members, there's 2 different membership types on a class team. The first is what we call students or members, and the next is called teachers or owners. Now, students have less rights and capabilities than teachers. Teachers are the owners, and so they can do a lot more on the team. And so I'm going to add a few students and I'm going to add a few teachers. So I'm going to add Billy as one of my students, and I'm going to add Jamie as another student. I'm going to press add. So I can see here that they've been added as members, which is what we call students. Now I also want to add a teacher. I'm going to add Allison, who's my TA for Economics 101 this term. So I'm going to press add, and now Allison has been added as an owner. So Allison now has equal rights to me. And so this is important if I want Allison to be able to add members, for instance, remove members, change the structure of the team, for instance. So I'm going to press close. So I can see here that my Economics 101 team has been created. I've added people, and out of the box it comes with a general channel. And so what I see generally used for the class team type in terms of channel structures. So if you think about a team could be a course and then channels. A lot of the time we see each channel name to be a module or a section of course content. So here in the entrepreneurship seminar team I'm a part of, we're covering business case development, exit strategy, IPO process, and value creation. These are the different sections of the course content. And so I can post all the course content related to each module in each channel. But out of the box, Teams comes with just the general channel. Now on the general channel, you'll see that I have conversations, I have files, and I have two features, class notebook and assignments, that I'll cover in a little bit. So this is what a blank team looks like. From here, if I wanted to add a channel, so let's call this Intro to Macro. I'm going to automatically favorite this channel for the whole team so all of my students see it. I'm going to press add, and now this channel shows up. Teams is meant to be flexible and fully customizable, so you can design this class team, for instance, the way that you teach your course, or your educators, you want to enable your educators to be able to teach courses. Again, it's flexible on purpose. I'm actually going to unfavorite this because I'm going to go back to my entrepreneurship seminar class, but you can see I removed that as a favorite and now it shows up down here. So you can see here I'm a part of a few different teams. I'll show you those in a minute, but for now let's focus on this entrepreneurship seminar class team. So here if I go to general, I can see the full history of all conversations related to this course. Again, going back to the persistent chat feature of Teams, all of the tribal knowledge is captured here. So if I have a student that maybe they moved to the school district midway through the term, or in a university setting, there are drop ads the first week of class or so, students can catch up. They don't have to try to dig through materials or figure out what they missed. They can just scroll up and read all of the posts. And so that in itself is a really critical feature of Teams that lends itself really well in the education setting. So here I can have a conversation with my team. I'm doing this on the general channel. Generally, general can be used for announcements. If I want to announce to my students that their papers are graded, for instance. So here I'm going to write a post. So if you see here, you can start a new conversation at the bottom. One best practice that I recommend is to click on the A with the little paintbrush here to do our rich text editor. So this allows you to add a subject. So one best practice is to always name your post, especially if it's a long one. And this isn't specific to a class team. I think this is good Teams hygiene in general. As you're using Teams at scale, there are gonna be a lot of posts and a lot of threaded conversations. For me, I know if I wake up and I see 100 posts in a specific channel, having titles is really helpful because I can quickly scroll through and just read the title. And if it's relevant to me, I'll click through and read the whole post. But if it's not relevant based on the title, I just won't read that post. And so definitely recommend naming your posts. So I'm going to write my first post. I'm going to say grades are in. And I can tell my class that grades are now posted. Please reach out to you have any questions. So I did something here called @mention. And so @mentioning is another best practice that I recommend because it forces a notification for whoever you've @mentioned. So as you write a post on Teams, think about who do I want to read this post and who do I expect to respond to this post. And so here I've @mentioned Allison. So Allison will receive a notification and I expect her to respond to it, or it's an action item for her. I also want to make sure my whole class is notified. So I'm actually going to mention the class name here, Entrepreneurship Seminar. And so this means that the entire class will get a notification. I want to make sure that the entire class reads that message. Now, I think grades at the end of the term is really important. I'm actually going to make this important. So I can actually put a red bang on here, just like you can do an urgent email, urgent message here, and I'm going to post that. So now my entire class has now gotten this notification. So another best practice here is around building a culture of liking. So liking a post, you can just put a thumbs up here. Now when you like a message, that doesn't actually need to mean that you really like that message. It can be just an acknowledgement. So I've seen many professors and teachers actually use this in their classroom. When they post something, they ask all of their students to like it, to know that they've read the message and acknowledged the message. The other scenario that we see this being used for in the class team is if a student asks a question and other students also have that question, the other students can like that question just to indicate that, oh, 10 other students had this question also. So it's a really simple feature, but it's one that gives good feedback in terms of okay, I've seen that 20 people in my class have read this message. And so I can see here that Allison's actually responded, reminding people not to use email, definitely reach out on Teams. And here you can see it's a threaded conversation. So Allison's replied directly to that conversation. She's also liked the message, and Billy, who's one of the students, has also liked the message to show that, yes, they've read the message. So it's really simple. It cuts down on email. Instead of me getting 100 different emails with questions, students can post them directly here. So the next tab here, so we just covered conversations. The next tab here is files. So if I click on files, I can see that all of my files show up. So I've posted a bunch of course files, including the syllabus. Now this is actually backed by SharePoint. So if I wanted to open this in SharePoint, I could if I want. But here, because Teams adds all the members and manages that roster for you, you don't have to worry about who has access to what file. Teams takes care of that through SharePoint permissions automatically. And so if I wanted to create a new file, I can do that. I can actually create a PowerPoint or Excel or Word document directly within Teams. If I want to add cloud storage, let's say you have an existing SharePoint you're already using, you can add an existing SharePoint or any of these other third-party cloud providers. Now here I've already uploaded my course syllabus. So I'm going to click here. And you can see that the course syllabus will open in Word within Teams. I still haven't left Teams. Again, I'm still using the browser. I can have a rich browsing experience, read everything related to the syllabus. Now, if I want, I can actually edit this directly within Teams. If I want to edit it in Word or Word Online, I can also do that, but here I'm going to edit it in Teams. And so you can see here, now I have a rich text editor, and I can be collaborating with multiple people at once on this document, all within Teams. So I'm going to press close. Now here I can see that my course syllabus is here. And let's say that this is a file that I want my students to look at on a regular basis. It's the syllabus, it's kind of the go-to for looking at the schedule and course content. So I'm going to click on more options here, the three dots next to the file. And I'm going to click on make this a tab. And so what actually happens here is that it comes up to the top. I've already pinned it. And the course syllabus now becomes promoted as one of these tabs, just as important as conversation or files. And so this is a great best practice if you want either your team or your students to look at something on a regular basis, or if it's a really important document, you can always pin it as a tab at the top. And the real awesome feature here is the little chat button here. So if I press this chat button, I can now have a conversation in context of this document. And I can mention people, I can share related files, I can share a GIF if I want, but being able to look at the document and then have the conversation side by side helps to maintain that context. And so I'm going to mention the course and say, now that grades are in, if any of you have questions on fine. So here I've posted a message to the team in context of this file. If I go back to conversations, you'll see that this actually shows up, and now it's the most recent conversation, and I've notified my class that now the grades are in. If you have any questions about final grade calculations, look at the syllabus. And so again, people can like that post. Now, one additional feature that is a really, really cool one is the ability to do what we call Meet Now. So I'm going to make an announcement about office hours. And I'm going to notify the whole class to make sure that everyone's notified. Now, virtual office hours is something that I see being used a lot across different universities, where a lot of students probably maybe have jobs, or maybe they're taking the course online and they can't physically line up outside of the professor's office and hope that the professor is there to be able to answer questions. And so virtual office hours are really easily enabled using a simple feature of Teams called what we call Meet Now. So I'm going to post this, and everyone's been notified virtual office hours are happening now. I'm going to hit reply. And so here there's a little video button under the reply, and I'm going to click Meet Now. And so this actually spins up a meeting directly related to this post. And so you can have multiple Meet Nows at the same time at the same channel. And so this becomes really cool if you think about group work, like if you have breakout sessions and students are doing group work, or maybe I want my TA to also run an office hours session at the same time. So I'm going to click Meet Now. And so you'll actually see me pop up here. And again, I'm still in Edge. I'm using the browser, and we have a video meeting experience within Edge. And so I'm going to call this office hours. I'm going to turn off the camera. You guys don't really need to watch me do this the whole time, but hi everyone. And I'm going to press Meet Now. And so here it opens up this meeting experience. And so regardless of what device you're using, whether you're on mobile, on the browser, on the desktop, you will get a notification if you're part of the class that office hours are happening. And so here I can share my screen, students can ask questions over chat, they can share files. But one really cool feature that just went into preview is recording. So you can actually record a meeting, and then the recording is automatically posted to Stream, which is a Microsoft video streaming service. And so if you think about either it's office hours or maybe it's an online lecture, you can record your sessions and then post them for your students to watch later on. Maybe they weren't able to make it to the class today. If it's an online environment, being able to watch it at your leisure is another feature that's really popular. And once that's uploaded, it actually will create a real-time transcript of that recording, and it can also be translated. So in some language courses, for instance, if you're teaching a Japanese class, being able to re-watch that lecture with English subtitles or Japanese subtitles is possible. For students where English is not their first language, for instance, in international programs, this is really common. If they want to rewatch the lecture with captions in their native language, that's another option here. So recording is a really cool feature. Again, possible within the browser. I haven't once left Teams yet this entire time, so I'm going to end this meeting. And so here I can see that I was asking me how was the call quality. It was good. I was just there. And I'll see who actually came to the office hours. So as a professor, I can keep track of who shows up. Now, I only showed up, but if I had 20 students here, their names would all be here as well. So going to the next two tabs, there's two key education features that come with the class team. The first is what we call Class Notebook. So here, if I open up Class Notebook, Class Notebook, if any of you have used OneNote Class Notebook, this is the exact same product. We've just brought it into Teams and deeply integrated. And so a Class Notebook is automatically created every time you create a class team. And so the really cool feature of this is that it automatically creates a page for each of my students. So here I can see Billy's one of my students, and he has a section for homework, class notes, quizzes, handouts. I can customize this and have it, when I create the class notebook, I can customize each page, for instance, or add them later on. But the really cool piece here is that as the professor, each of my students have their own workspace, and only the student can see that workspace and the teacher or the owner. So myself as a professor, I can see what's happening with all of my students and keep track there. I also have a collaboration space, so if students are collaborating on certain content, this again is configurable, but we automatically create a page for each channel that's been created. There's also a content library, so as the professor, I can have a standard set of notes or content that I want my students to be able to look at, but not edit. The next core feature from the class team type is assignments. So if I click on assignments, assignments is a lightweight assignment service where it allows you to create assignments, assign them to students, and track them in a timeline view. So if I click on new assignment, I can assign it to a certain course. So here it's for entrepreneurship seminar, and I can even assign it to different sets of students. So this is a new feature as well. It just came out a few weeks ago, where if I want to assign group projects, for instance, I can create that here. So I'm going to assign it to Jamie, Marcy, Sophia, and Billy. And I'm going to enter a title. I'm going to call it Final Project Team A. I can enter instructions, I can add resources, and I can specify when it's due. So I'm going to say due tomorrow, and I'm going to assign points. It's going to be worth 200 points. I'm going to press assign. So now those students that I assigned it to will be notified that they have this project due. So if I go back here and click on it, I can review it. So I can see who's turned the assignment in. Oh, this one's still being created, so it might take a moment. I'm going to go back to an existing one. So this is the midterm project, and I can click review. And so here I can see that none of my students have turned in their midterm. That's a problem. If they have turned it in, I can review it. I can assign points. I can provide feedback. And it even tracks what I still have left to review. If I go back to assignments, I can see that I have a view of all of the draft assignments. I can schedule them later. I can see what's been turned in and what hasn't been. Now, that's just for this course. If I click on the left, you see that we have an assignments app. So if I click on this, as a teacher, if I'm teaching 10 different sections or 5 different sections, I can see all of the assignments in a timeline order. Now, if I'm a student, I think this is the real killer feature. As a student, if all of my teachers or professors are using Teams for the classes, I have a timeline view of what's due when, what's past due, what I need to turn in, and what my grades are, all in a single place. So going back to the team, if I click on this plus button, I've already shown you a bunch of different tabs. We've got the conversations tab, files, class notebook, assignments, the course syllabus. But if you click on the plus button, this opens up the world of the tutor applications I talked about in the beginning that we've integrated with Teams. And so tabs is one application type. And so you can see here if I wanted to add streams, so if all of your lectures are posted, you can add that here. I can even just add a simple website as a tab. One best practice that we see is if you're using a learning management system, you can actually link to the course page and add that as a tab. So just link the website and add it as a tab so your students and if you're a teacher, you only have to go to one place to be able to see all that course content. We're also integrated with forms. So this is really great for quick assessments. So if you want your students to fill out a quick survey or take a quick quiz, you can do that with forms. We're also integrated with Flipgrid. We announced our acquisition of Flipgrid yesterday, so that's really exciting. Flipgrid was one of our first education apps available in Teams, and it's really cool to see them come together with Microsoft. So if you're using Flipgrid, you can also bring that directly within Teams here. So that covers the class team type. The next team type I want to show you is a staff team type. So I go to join or create a team like you saw before, and I click on create team. We just went over the class team type. We won't cover the PLCs today, but they behave similarly to staff. So staff members. If I click on this, it'll create a staff team. I already have one created though, so I'll show that to you now. So here, I'm going to collapse this one and focus on the School of Business. So I'm the dean of the School of Business, so I teach an entrepreneurship class in economics apparently, but then I'm also the dean of the School of Business. And so I've created this team for my entire school to be able to come together to collaborate on different initiatives, post announcements, track insights, collaborate on curriculum all in a single place. So as you'll see, this looks very similar to the class team, and that's on purpose. Again, a team is meant to be flexible, and you can design it through channels and the apps that you use and the way you structure the team. It's flexible on purpose here. And so with this staff team, there are a few things I'll highlight here. The first is the staff notebook. So just like we have a class notebook, we have a staff notebook that comes with every staff team. And so here, if I open up my staff notebook, I can see that I've got a collaboration space, content library, and private notebooks. So I click on the caret here. Just like the class team, the staff team automatically creates a page for each team member. So let's say I have a faculty member that joins midway through the semester. I can add them to the team, and they'll automatically get their own page at the bottom in this staff notebook. And so here I've got a collaboration space, so if there are any initiatives that we're collaborating on, again, we automatically create a page for each channel, but this is configurable as well. We've got a content library, so maybe there's standard policies and procedures or deadlines you want to have that's not editable by the team, just the owner. You can put that here. And so here again, I can see a page created automatically for each of the staff members. So in this case, it's each of my faculty in the business school. So Allison has her own page, Ellen has her own page, and as the dean, I can see everyone's pages. Just like in the class notebook as the teacher, I could see everyone's pages. It's the same exact model. Now, if I'm Allison though, I can only see my page, and my manager, the dean, can also see it. So this is all configurable here. Out of the box, we've got professional development, evaluation, observations, curriculum feedback, but you can add whatever pages you want. One place we see this being used in the school setting is principals giving direct feedback to teachers in terms of course evaluations or classroom observations. In university settings, giving feedback to faculty, like students will take a survey at the end of the semester, and then passing all of that course feedback directly to the faculty member can happen quite easily using the notebook without having to post a file that everyone can see. You can privately give feedback to that employee or to that staff member. So if I go back here, we've got my staff notebook, we've got conversations, it behaves the exact same way that I showed you before. I've got all of my files, which also behaves the same way. So if I go to the academic research section here, I'm going to write a quick post, and I'm going to call it milestone tracking. I'm going to notify the School of Business. Actually, I'm just going to notify academic research. So I'm just going to mention the channel, so people following the channel will get this notification. Academic research, I've added tasks post, and everyone who's following the channel will get notified. So here, if I click on research tasks, I can see that an app called Planner will open directly within Teams. So Planner is from Office 365. It's a group task planning product. And here I can see there's a bunch of different tasks already assigned. So I'm going to create a task. I'm going to say finalize budget. I'm going to set a due date of Friday. I'm going to assign it to someone. So I'm going to assign this to Billy. And I'm going to add the task. And so now Billy will be notified that he has a task. And if Billy has completed the task, he can check that off here. If I click on charts, I can have a quick visual of what tasks haven't been started, what's in progress, what's late. I can see who on my team has completed their tasks or who's falling behind. And I can see, again, all of the full list of tasks here. Finally, I can also click on a schedule view. So this is great for tracking schedule and milestones. I can see that Friday we've got this big milestone coming up. Better remind everyone that it's happening. The next integration I'll show you is Power BI. And so Power BI is another Office 365 product that allows you to make beautiful, lightweight data visualizations without really being a data scientist or data designer. You can make really great, easy dashboards. And so if you're already using Power BI, super simple. You can add Power BI if you go to plus tab and you click on Power BI, you can link to an existing dashboard. And so here we're tracking graduation rates for the business school, and I'm tracking cohorts over time. If I want to just click on part of the data set and zoom in on that data, I can do that here. I can see all of my other dashboards that are related. So if I want to look at demographics, I can just look at what happened in fall 2016, and I can see here that I can see the full breakdown here. And we see Power BI being used really heavily for dashboards and metrics, and putting them into teams is really helpful to be able to have a single place to track everything related to your team. And so definitely, if you're using Power BI, I really recommend bringing it into teams. So here you can see an example of a notification. So I've been sending a lot of notifications, but I can see here I have a 1 next to academic research. So I'm going to click on that. And so Allison has mentioned me and said thanks. I'm going to like this post. So you can see here just how simple notifications are and the context clues, being able to click on it and then, okay, I see where I've been mentioned. So that's actually a really good transition to cover the rest of these apps we saw on the left. So you've already seen teams and you've already seen assignments. The first thing I'll show you here is activity. So you saw, in addition to the activity showing up next to the channel itself, there was also a 1 next to this activity bell. So I can see here that I've been mentioned, and I can see people have liked my posts. And so you can also filter your activity. So as a best practice, I do this every morning on my phone actually, where I can filter for @mentions. And so anyone that's @mentioned me, I see that as an action item for me or a post I need to respond to. And so this helps me at least triage my activity inbox every morning. And so Allison liked my message, and so I have this notification comes up here as well. So the next section is chat. And so as I mentioned before, you can do group chats, you can do one-on-one chats. So here I've been chatting with Allison. I'm going to say, hey, Allison, are we on for coffee later? And Allison will be notified that Allison has a chat now, and she can just respond directly in here. I can even share files and track activity here as well. If I want to have a quick video call or audio call with Allison, I can do that here as well. I can also do a group chat. So here I'm part of this economics project group. I can see that I've got 3 participants already. Now, I mentioned Teams chat is persistent. I can see the full history here. Now, I want to add someone else to my project group. A student actually joined the class late, and so now they are added to my group 2 weeks in, and so I'm going to add this here. So I'm going to add Jamie, who's actually come in late. I'm going to press add. And so now Jamie has been added to the conversation and shared all chat history. So this is a really cool feature to be able to include everyone and keep them in the loop. So if I wanted to do a quick video call or audio call, I could do that directly from this chat. And I can do this from any device. So especially on mobile, if you want to quickly have a meetup, whether you're driving, hopefully you're safe and at a stoplight and can hit the right button without driving while distracted. If you're in an Uber or on the bus or on the train, this is a really great way to stay connected to your smaller groups if it's a work group, or maybe if you're a student and you have a project group or a study group. On mobile, this is also really helpful. As you can see here, I've got a little Skype symbol next to some of these. They're suggested contacts. So Teams actually brings in your Skype for Business contacts if you already have them set. And you can see here that Brianna, for instance, is not yet using Teams, just using Skype. But I can actually IM Brianna on Skype from Teams if I wanted to. I also have contacts. So this is a new feature that we brought over from Skype for Business. If you already have contact groups set up in Skype for Business, these will automatically show up in Teams as well. So the next section is meetings. So here, this will integrate with your Exchange calendar. So if you're using Outlook calendar, your meetings will show up here, and you can schedule meetings. So just like I showed you Meet Now, you can also create meetings directly within Teams, and you can select a channel to meet in. We call this a channel meetup, or you can invite people over email, for instance, and they'll get a link to join. Files is really cool because I can see all of the recent activity of files across all of my teams. I can also see my own OneDrive, and I can even add other cloud storage providers. So if you think about this as my me space, I can see all of my files, and I can also see all of my team files. The final piece I'll show is Store. So I mentioned we have over 200 integrations into Teams, and that list is ever growing. Definitely check out the education section. This list is growing as well. We've got Flipgrid, we've got Quizlet, and SurveyMonkey, which are really popular, and many coming soon. And so if you want to install any of these apps, let's say I wanted to install Adobe Creative Cloud, I can click on it and I can add it to a specific team. And finally, the last section is feedback. So we take feedback really seriously as a product group. So if you have an idea or have a question for the community, you can share that here. So I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint and wrap things up since we only have a few minutes left. So what's next? I have a bunch of resources to learn more, and this session has been recorded, so I'll be distributing this after the fact with a link to be able to watch this again or share with your coworkers or colleagues. So one resource definitely check out is ak.ms/successwithteams or successwithteams.com. This is our holy grail of resources for getting started. So whether you're an IT pro or an end user or somewhere in between, there's so much guidance there. You can spend days reading all of this to really go deep on Teams and learn how to take advantage of the platform. We also have a new set of resources that were made available 2 weeks ago, which is if you go to ak.ms/teams-edu-kit, there's end user videos, little snippets for here's how to create, here's how to find your way around. What are teams and channels that are education focused? So these videos are really great and bite-sized to get started. So I would definitely suggest checking out these resources, getting started with Teams, playing around, and definitely try out different team types, class teams, staff teams, PLCs, and definitely provide feedback. Not listed here, but if you go to Success with Teams, it's on there, is user voice. So if you if you see features that aren't there, definitely go to user voice for Microsoft Teams, and you'll probably see that feature has already been requested, but if it hasn't, write a post. If it has, definitely like it or upvote it or add a comment. User voice is our main avenue for feedback, and we definitely value all of that feedback. So with that, we'll wrap up. I think we have 5 more minutes for questions. I'll say if you're able to add your email address if you've asked a question, and if I'm not able to cover that, I'll follow up with an answer. But I see that some folks have already started answering each other's questions, so thank you, Adrian, especially for that. So I'm just going to quickly scroll through questions and see if there's any I can answer quickly in the last 5 minutes. So some conversation of who's using Teams, that's awesome. Trying to find a question here. Can you screen record you grading assignments using the meeting recording, then have it securely stored and only accessible when permission is given? Sure, yes, you could create a meeting, share your screen, record it, and then share it with people. That's certainly possible. Further to what Dale asked, what meeting content is available to teachers versus students? Would private conversations be accessible to all? Private conversations wouldn't be accessible. The only thing that's accessible if you record the meeting is a meeting that other people join, and you make that meeting available. From an admin perspective, there is audit logging and e-discovery if there was an issue that you need to look into. But from a teacher or student perspective, they can only see the chats or conversations that they're part of. And for meeting recordings or meetings, it's just if they are part of that team and that meeting is recorded. Looking for a few other questions. Teams generate underlying groups which appear in staff's Outlook and confuse them. Any way to remove this? So we recently announced that every team created, so to back up, whenever you create a team, an Office 365 group is created behind the scenes. And so there's no way to stop that, but we've now decided to suppress that in the GAL. So when you create a team, previously you would see that team show up in your membership in the GAL. We've suppressed that. Now, appearing in staff's Outlook, not a way to remove this today, but certainly suppressing the GAL at least will help reduce some of that discovery. Oh, and Adrian answered my question. Thank you, Adrian. And seeing if there's any other questions here. On chats, what if you wish to delete a chat? You can totally delete a chat. If you click on the three dots next to a chat, so if I go back to chat here and click on the three dots and I want to delete this chat, I can click here and I can delete it. And so I can only delete my own chats, but that's deleted and people can't see that chat anymore. Can meetings include voice dial-in over telephony like Skype for Business? Yes, that is possible. That's supported today. I have to give a shout out to Adrian just to wrap up. Adrian's one of our big champions in the UK, and thank you, Adrian, for answering all of these questions, and definitely really helpful. So Michael asks, can you point us to additional materials such as demo scripts for academic partners to use in presenting teams to academic clients? So if you go to demos.microsoft.com, you can actually create a test tenant, and education tenants are now an option. So you can actually use Teams for Education and demo there. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. And Adrian, don't apologize. It's super helpful. Thank you for answering all of the questions. Really, really great. If folks, I haven't answered your question, if you can just type your email address, and I will follow up there. And really, really appreciate your participation today and great